was, listen, black people put Obama in office, lest he forget that. Black people put Obama in office, because if it had been a white election, he would not have won. Let me explain that to you. Now everybody's like, oh, white people voted. No, white people voted for John McCain. And some white people voted for Obama. But what was amazing was that so many white people were so angry about what was going on, they actually suspended their racism and did vote for him. That was the part they got. They were just that upset. Now somebody gonna vote for Obama. I live in Georgia. Hello, you know, Georgia really couldn't make that tip over, despite Atlanta and everybody else who came out and turned out so hard. But in Georgia, you know, there's a large number of poor white people. But they are wed to the Confederate flag, and they're wed to, you know, McCain, Palin concert, whatever it is, because they have not made the transition to understanding that they are, at this moment, in a class relationship with black people and Mexicans. You know, it's like black people today talking about the Mexicans are taking our jobs. You know, I love that one. Especially for most of the people I know, I'm like, when is the last time you worked? You know, what? Hello? Who's taking your job? You know, no Mexican's taking your job. You haven't had a job. Oh, you mad at Massa because he likes the Mexicans better than he likes you. Stop yourself. You know, let's get off that train. The Mexican is not your enemy. So just cut it out. You know, not even capable of being your enemy. You know, and of course they play that card in the Mexican community too. You know, black people will steal your paycheck. You know, believe me, this is what goes on. Can I get a witness on this? That's what they do. They tell the Mexicans that the blacks will steal from them, tell the blacks and Mexicans are trying to undercut them and take them. Everybody arguing over a small crumbs and so forth. But when people begin to realize, and this is one of the lessons of the Black Panther Party, when we made those coalitions, we took some heavy hits from the black nationalist groups. But since nobody could come have combat with us and win, I'll put it like that, they just had to shut up. But when we started out with AIM, that was one thing. And then we started talking about the Chicanos, they were like, wait a minute, we ain't got nothing to do with no Mexicans. You know, I mean, I'm serious. Like, everybody now talks about the Rainbow Coalition, but back then, they did not want to talk to Mexicans. And we stood on that stage, and I remember right here in Southern California, LA, on December 31st of '68, with the Brown Berets, the Southern California chapter of the party, with the Brown Berets, and that's where they started. And I was there and able to witness in a wonderful moment when we said, we are one, we have the same struggle, same oppressor, and we're going to wage the same struggle. Then we added in the Young Lords, and then we added in the Young Patriot Party. Now the Young Patriot Party was the one that was really the most important in many ways. That was begun by a guy named Slim Coleman out of Chicago. And Slim Coleman, I like to say these guys were all like left-leaning Timothy McVeighs. This wasn't your SDS Weather Underground group. This was rooted in the community, okay? These were people who had, when we had our free breakfast program, they had a free breakfast, and I'm not making this up, and hoedown. Free breakfast and hoedown. That kind of gives you a clue into the constituency. They were dealing with, okay? We're talking about some rig-running Kentucky Appalachian, no-shoe-wearing Chicago will call me a nigger in a minute, but then suddenly they began to realize that they had something in common. And you know what it was? Tenants' rights. They were all poor living in tenements in Chicago. And bit by bit, the blacks, Black Panther Party and the Young Patriots brought our people together and organized around tenants' rights. And whether they ever fell in love didn't matter. What they understood was they had a common ground issue and they were prepared to go to war over it. And that's when things changed. So I say that today. The most important, most key element, the black people get the drill. We get the drill. We've been getting that drill for a long time because it's so obvious because we're black. So, you know, it's like we can't run, we can't hide, even though people want to say, I'm now biracial. You know, I love those people. I'm mixed. And, and Latinos get it, and Chicanos and all the other people get it, and all the other people of color get it. And when white people decide to realize that your skin color has not brought you very much in this country, and that you have a common bond. No, you don't have a common history. We do not have the same history. There's no history of slavery, not even among the Chicanos. There's some slave-like behavior in those fields, but I'm talking about in terms of, you know, our histories are different. But we have one common bond, and that is that we are all living in an exploitive situation where we can't go to school, we can't pay our rent, we can't do this. And that's the irony of this moment. And so unless somebody figures out how to pass some money on quickly, Obama is going to be, have a big problem. And some people said recently, they said, well, when they saw the country going down, they said, well, let's go on and let a black man be at the helm when it goes down, But the bottom line is that I think that, yes, I think there's a setup. Well, what does class warfare mean? It just means that some kind of shift has to take place that's very much bigger. And I think that the partnership among all of you young people sitting here in this room, when you talk about what can you do, when you can organize together around common issues, you do not have to like each other. We never learned, even though it's ignorant of me to say this, but we never learned how to speak Spanish, even though we were in coalition with the Brown Berets and the Young Lords, I have a friend right now I can call up, I have to ask her to translate something for me who was in the Young Lords that I know out of New York. So I'm saying that what you can do now is to begin to organize around certain issues. One of the things we talked about, just the day-to-day stuff, show that people have a right to go to school. I mean, this school, New York, what, the New York University, or was that Columbia University, where they shut it down for at least a day, talking about the tuition payments. Remember that? Wasn't that the other day? Yeah. Hello?
NYU.
NYU. I said Columbia, huh? It was NYU. NYU shut it down. That's how we got African American studies from. Now we got all this multicultural stuff. People shut the schools down. I mean, that's stuff people can do if they want to do stuff. And I think that we have to get past certain things. And once we really talk about class, we're already halfway there, because we haven't ever really talked about class on a national basis. So, I don't know about, all the poor are going to run up. Like somebody's got something going on Wall Street. They're going to march on Wall Street. What you going to march on Wall Street? Unless you got some guns to stick up some people. I don't know what you're going to Wall Street for, because Wall Street is the one getting the bailout from Washington. You might as well go to where the money is, where they're printing money, by the way. Which I'm asking for some print. I don't care that it's printed, you know what I mean? Just print us some money, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot you can do, and I think looking over that program, but the real thing would be to organize, even on this campus, a kind of campus-wide group that says, okay, what are the things that people operate off of, what affects them the most? People can't pay their tuitions, and live every day. People don't have enough to either, you have to trade off the car for the this or the that for the that. You know what I mean? And there's all those kinds of things. So I can't come up with any one solution. If I had it, believe me, we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be talking about the history of the struggle and how we won, Okay, I guess I take one more question. Is that good? I guess I won't. Nobody has one.
Can I ask another one?
Only if nobody else has one. Yeah, why not?
Okay.